Hi guys, I'm Shelley and welcome to wrap up and review number 5 of this year. I'm so terribly behind in these, so let's jump straight in, starting with All My Friends Are Superheroes by Andrew Kaufman. This is the story of Tom, who, funny enough, all his friends are superheroes, but they're not conventional superheroes. They just have this particular part of their personality that is multiplied. It's made bigger, and that is their superpower. So you have a perfectionist, a couch surfer, the anxiety monster. You have the clock who travels in time, but points out that technically we all travel in time. I'm travelling in time right now. We are doing it constantly. So all of Tom's friends have this one thing that they're really good at, whereas Tom, he doesn't have anything he's really good at, because he can do all the things that everybody else can do, just less, like a normal person can. And that's what this book is about, I think. I'm not really sure. See, the blurb on the front of this book is buy it, borrow it, steal it, but just make sure you read it, and that was by Scott Pack. I bought it, I read it, I don't get it. It's like Ghost meets the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I do not understand this book. Does it have some kind of moral questions and answers thing that I'm missing? I gave it like 2 stars because I just don't understand this book. If you have read it and loved it, please tell me what I'm missing, because Next up we have Aristotle and Dantes Discover the Secret of the Universe by Benjamin Alia Sazens. I have practiced this name so many times and I still cannot get it out of my mouth, so I can apologise so many times. But I have read this on the recommendation of so many different people, but mainly Adriana from Perpetual Pages. I will find a link to her review, because she says the name right, and she reviews it better than I ever could. But this is the story of Aristotle and Dante, who are 2 teenage boys. They are 15 years old. It's the summer, and they are growing up, and Aristotle, Ari for short, can't swim, so he goes to the local swimming pool where he meets Dante, who teaches him how to swim. A friendship goes from there, and the friendship grows and becomes something very strong, and maybe love kind of sneaks in there. I don't know how to describe this book. I have tried so many times in my head, but it is beautiful. It's the story of this friendship that just grows steadily, a real true friendship. They have times where they don't talk to each other, they have arguments, they have times where all they do is talk to each other and that's it. They part and grow and then come back together again, and they are constantly somehow in the back of each other's heads, just that person you're just connected to, that is always there, and you're always thinking, what do they think? I wonder what they're doing right now. One thing I did find really interesting is when Ari is talking about his age and that he's 15, which is a sort of in-between age. 14, you're definitely a teenager, you're still a kid. 16, you're more of an adult, you're thought of as having responsibilities. In some countries you become legal for certain things. But 15 is that in-between age that is so tricky. You are rebelling and trying to grab as much responsibility and independence as possible, and that is really put into this book and is talked about quite a lot. The best way I know how to describe this book is just by reading you some of the quotes. My life was somebody else's idea. I want that tattooed somewhere or just printed on the wall. Why do some guys have tears when some don't? Boys like me belonged to the rain. And on and on. The language of this book is beautiful. This book is pure poetry. Please read it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now this again was recommended to me by Adriana from Perpetual Pages. Look! I read it, Adriana, and I am going to talk about it. So this is the story of Patroclus, who is the son of a king, and he's sort of the black sheep. He doesn't quite fit in, and his father is really fed up with him, and so he is exiled from his father's land and he goes to live in the court of Achilles. It seems that the sons of certain kings tend to get exiled quite a lot and chucked into other lands. Now obviously Achilles, the Trojan War, and you do get this in this book. We don't get to the Trojan Wars till about halfway through the book, but this is the story mainly of the friendship that grows between Patroclus and Achilles and how they grow together and become warriors together and end up falling in love with each other. Now I have to admit, I did almost drop this book at the first chapter. If it wasn't for Adriana's recommendation, I would have, because the first chapter, oh my god, the names. You are chucked a bunch of names and I can't cope. But if you get past that, the story really begins. Patroclus is trying to save Achilles from his fate. They all know he's going to have this big battle and possibly die, and Patroclus is trying to make his life just kind of drag out and be as long as possible. He doesn't want him to go into battle. He doesn't want him to die. He wants his friend with him all the time. So to keep him alive, he starts doing things he wouldn't normally have done. And so that starts to twist the friendship as well. And the writing is so beautiful. There's saucy moments. I didn't see them coming. There are some very saucy moments, but they don't feel saucy. It feels like it was supposed to happen. You know how some scenes can be put in, you're just like, oh, you're just putting that in for no apparent reason. This one glided in and glided just straight back out again. You didn't really feel the breakup of la-di-da-di-da, sex, la-di-da-di-da. It just smoothed over. I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, Little Brown kindly sent me All I Know Now by Carrie Hope Fletcher, which is a wanderings and reflections on growing up gracefully. Carrie is a YouTuber. Her channel is Way Past My Bedtime, but she is also an actress. She's currently playing Eponine in Les Mis at London's West End. Now you may be thinking just another YouTube book, but this one was a book before it became a book, if that makes sense. She started a blog on Tumblr where people could ask her advice, and she called it the Honorary Big Sister because she is at the right age to give advice and not feel like a guardian or a parental person. She is in her late teens, early 20s, and people could come to her with their embarrassing things they didn't want to talk to their parents about, and she would talk to you about them. And not only that, she would then tell you her stories, and that was developed into a book, and a wonderful book at that. All these different things, from your first day at school to your first falling in love to the most embarrassing moment you've ever done to Twitter. Teenagers have to deal with Twitter now and all these different social medias and way of being bullied and way of being a bully. She even talks about the fact that at one point she was a bully and she didn't mean to be. At the back there is a massive list of different advice lines and different advice websites to go to if you are feeling anxious or you're feeling any of the things that are talked about in this book, which is great because you don't always know where to go when you're in trouble. And it is filled, oh boy is it filled, with beautiful little drawings. Carrie likes to doodle, and she has doodled all over this book, and it is beautiful. I wish I'd had it when I was a teenager. I really, really do. It could have helped me out so much. And last but not least, on Audible, I listened to Wild by Cheryl Strait. This is an autobiographical story of Cheryl as she hikes the PCT, and it was just made into a big movie with Reese Witherspoon, which I have to admit was why I decided to listen to it. Something traumatic has happened to Cheryl, and she's sort of lost her way and become wayward in life, and so to get herself back, she decides to hike the PCT, which is the Pacific Coast Trail that goes from one end of America to the other. I really could have done with a map because I'm not quite sure where it is. This book at first I thought was going to be a bit like Eat, Pray, Love. A woman completely lost goes off and finds herself in the world, but it is a lot more than that. Cheryl is self-destructing and she slowly builds herself back up again while hiking the PCT. I want to read to you a little quote that I found kind of encapsulated the whole book for me, which is, "It seemed to be the way it must feel for people who cut themselves on purpose. Not pretty but clean, not good but void of regret. I was trying to heal, trying to get the bad out of my system so I could be good again, to cure me of myself." That is what this book is. She's going on this trail to cure herself of herself because she's self-destructing in her head. Some of the sections, I have to admit, were a little kind of over-descriptive, talking about where she was in the mountains and everything. I do get a bit annoyed at these books because obviously these people are in the position where they can go and they can fix themselves. A lot of us are not in that position. We can't just drop everything and go hike the PCT. We have to get up the next day, pay the bills and carry on because we have responsibilities. But I found her very compelling. It is very raw because she talks about the truth. She doesn't talk about how lovely it is and how wonderful it is. She talks about her toenails falling off. And she talks about how you have to deal with a period while camping. And I really, really appreciate that. She hasn't sugar-coated anything. I do recommend it if you want to read a story about somebody who has fallen apart, comes back together, and is completely raw about it. And I'm going to shut up now. I would love to talk to you about any of these books, so come talk to me in the comments, especially if you understand all my friends are superheroes, because I don't. So come talk to me down in the comments about these books. I hope you guys are good, and I will see you guys soon. Bye. Benjamin Alia Sazens. Oh, bum.